The rain started the moment Clara signed the papers. Not a gentle rain. A cold, relentless storm that turned the tiny town streets silver under the streetlights. The realtor folded the contract quickly and forced a smile. "Congratulations," he said. "The house is yours now." Clara looked at the old brass key in her palm. It felt heavier than it should. "Why was it so cheap?" she asked again. The realtor avoided her eyes. "People around here talk too much. That's all." He grabbed his coat and rushed toward the door of the office, almost as if he wanted to escape before dark. Clara stood alone beside the dusty window. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills. She looked toward the distant road where the abandoned house waited beyond the trees, a giant silhouette against the storm. Old, silent, watching. Clara had spent the last 3 years drowning in debt. After her mother died, hospital bills consumed everything. Her apartment was gone. Her savings vanished. Every dream she once had collapsed quietly, one unpaid invoice at a time. So when she found a listing online, she thought it had to be fake. A massive Victorian house. 5 bedrooms. 2 floors. Huge attic. Almost no price at all. It looked too good to be true. And maybe it was. But Clara had no choices left. The drive to the property took nearly 40 minutes. The farther she traveled from town, the narrower the road became. Trees leaned over the asphalt like giant shadows. Fog crawled across the ground. Her headlights barely cut through it. Then she saw the gates. Rust-covered iron. Half broken. One side hanging open. Beyond them stood the house. Enormous. Dark gray walls. Tall windows like empty eyes. The porch sagged slightly from age. And above everything rose a steep roof with a single attic window facing the forest. Clara parked slowly. The engine stopped. Silence swallowed everything. No birds. No wind. Nothing. Then, knock. She jumped violently. A man stood beside her car window. Old. Thin. Wearing a dripping raincoat. Clara lowered the glass carefully. "You bought the house?" he asked. His voice sounded rough. "Yes." The old man stared toward the attic window. Then back at her. "You shouldn't sleep upstairs." Before Clara could ask what he meant, the man walked away into the rain, disappearing between the trees. Inside, the house smelled of dust and wet wood. Her flashlight revealed old furniture covered with white sheets. A chandelier hung crooked from the ceiling. Portraits lined the walls, most of them damaged by moisture. But one portrait remained untouched. A woman in a dark blue dress. Young, beautiful, and strangely familiar. Clara paused. Something about the woman's eyes bothered her. Not fear, recognition. As if Clara had seen her before. But where? She stepped closer, then froze. The painting was signed at the bottom. Evelyn Vale, 1987. Vale, the same surname written on the property documents. The electricity barely worked. Only a few lamps flickered alive. Clara unpacked her bags in the downstairs bedroom. The storm outside worsened. Branches scraped against the walls. Water hammered the windows. Still, she felt relieved. For the first time in years, she owned something, even if it was old, even if it felt strange. At least it was hers. She made tea on the ancient stove and sat in silence. That's when she heard it. Thump. Above her. She looked up slowly. Another sound followed. Creak, creak, creak. Footsteps. Directly above the ceiling. In the attic, Clara stopped breathing. She checked her phone. No signal. The footsteps continued. Slow. Heavy. As if someone walked carefully from one end of the attic to the other, then stopped. Complete silence returned. Clara grabbed the flashlight. "It's probably rats," she whispered. But her voice shook. She stepped into the hallway. The attic entrance was above the second-floor corridor. A hanging rope descended from the ceiling hatch. The wood above it looked ancient. Clara stared upward. Then, creak. One more step, right above her head. Someone was standing there. Her heart pounded violently. She pulled the rope. The attic ladder unfolded with a loud crack. Dust exploded into the air. Cold darkness waited above. Clara aimed the flashlight upward. Nothing moved. Slowly she climbed. Each step groaned beneath her weight. The attic smelled different from the rest of the house. Not dusty, not rotten, fresh, like someone had opened the windows recently. The flashlight beam crossed piles of old boxes, broken chairs, trunks. Then it stopped. A chair stood in the center of the attic, facing away from her, rocking gently, back and forth, back and forth. Clara froze. The attic windows were closed. There was no wind, yet the chair moved slowly on its own. Then she noticed something else. Footprints, fresh footprints in the dust, leading toward the far wall. Clara followed them carefully. Her breathing became shallow. The footprints stopped before a small wooden door hidden behind stacked boxes. She frowned. The house plans never mentioned another room. She reached for the handle. Locked. Then suddenly, bang! Something slammed downstairs. Clara nearly screamed. Another bang echoed through the house. The front door. Someone was inside. She rushed down the ladder. Hello? No answer. The hallway was dark now. The lights had died completely. Only lightning illuminated the house in short flashes. Clara moved carefully toward the foyer. The front door stood wide open. Rain poured inside. Mud covered the floor. And there, near the staircase, wet footprints, large footprints, fresh, leading deeper into the house. Clara's stomach tightened. Who's there? Nothing. Then a voice answered softly from the darkness. You finally came back. Clara spun around. But nobody stood there, only shadows, and the distant sound of footsteps above her once again, slowly pacing across the attic floor. She locked every door that night. Sleep never came. The footsteps continued for hours, sometimes slow, sometimes hurried. At one point she heard what sounded like dragging, heavy dragging, as if furniture moved across the attic floor. Around 3 a.m., the sound suddenly stopped. Silence filled the house. Clara finally closed her eyes. Then came a whisper, right beside her ear. Don't let him find the key. Clara bolted upright. The room was empty, but her bedroom door stood open. She was certain she had locked it. Morning brought no comfort. Fog covered the property. The woods looked endless. Clara stepped outside to inspect the muddy footprints near the porch. They had vanished, as if the rain erased every trace. She drove into town, hoping to learn more about the house. The diner on Main Street became completely silent when she mentioned the address. An older waitress slowly approached her table. You bought the Vale house? Clara nodded. The woman looked nervous. That attic should have stayed sealed. What happened there? Clara asked. The waitress hesitated, then leaned closer. 20 years ago, a girl disappeared in that house. Clara felt cold instantly. The police searched everywhere. Never found her. What was her name? The waitress swallowed hard. Evelyn Vale. Clara's coffee cup slipped slightly in her hands. The same woman from the portrait. The waitress continued quietly. Some folks say she still walks up there at night. That evening, Clara returned home before sunset. But something felt wrong immediately. The attic window was open. She was certain it had been closed earlier. Cold wind moved through the trees. And from somewhere above, creak, 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 footsteps, waiting for her return. Clara stood frozen in the driveway. The attic window swayed slowly in the wind, back and forth, like someone had opened it moments earlier. The footsteps stopped the instant she stepped out of the car. Silence settled over property again. Heavy, unnatural. She grabbed her bags from the passenger seat and hurried toward the porch. The old wooden boards groaned beneath her feet. As she unlocked the front door, she noticed something strange. The porch swing was moving, very gently. The air outside was completely still. Inside, the house felt colder than before. Not normal cold. A deep, damp chill that seemed to crawl through the walls. Clara locked the door immediately, then checked every room downstairs. Nothing appeared disturbed. No broken windows. No missing objects. But when she reached the kitchen, she stopped breathing. A teacup sat on the counter. Fresh steam rose from it. Clara stared in disbelief. She had not made tea before leaving town. Slowly, she stepped closer. The cup trembled slightly in her hand. Still hot. Someone had been inside. Very recently. Then she noticed a note beneath the cup. 3 words written in shaky handwriting. Check the attic. Fear tightened inside her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to drive away, to never come back. But Clara had nowhere else to go. This house was all she had left. She grabbed the flashlight again. This time she also carried a heavy fireplace poker. The old metal felt cold in her sweaty hands. Step by step, she climbed toward the 2nd floor. The hallway stretched before her in darkness. At the far end hung the attic rope. Waiting. The floor creaked softly beneath her feet. Then another creak answered from above. Not the house settling. A deliberate step. Someone moving carefully overhead. Clara swallowed hard. Who's there? Silence. Then, thump, directly above her. She pulled the rope sharply. The attic ladder unfolded again. Dust drifted through the air like smoke. Clara climbed slowly. The flashlight beam shook violently in her hands. The attic looked different now. The rocking chair stood completely still, but several boxes had moved. She was certain they had. A narrow path now crossed the attic floor toward the hidden wooden door. Clara followed it carefully. The footprints in the dust were fresh again, and this time they were smaller. Barefoot, she stopped before the hidden door. The old brass lock hung loosely. Unlocked now. Clara hesitated only a second before opening it. The hinges screamed loudly. A narrow staircase descended into darkness below the attic. Clara frowned. A staircase inside the attic? That made no sense. The air rising from below smelled old, not dusty. Earthy, like wet soil after rain. Her flashlight revealed stone walls beneath the wooden steps. This part of the house looked far older than everything above it. She moved downward slowly. The deeper she went, the colder it became. Then she reached the bottom, and her flashlight revealed a hidden room. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The room looked untouched for decades. A small bed stood against one wall. Candles melted across an old table. Books covered every surface. Hundreds of them. And on the walls, photographs. Dozens and dozens of photographs. All of the same girl, Evelyn Vale. Some showed her smiling outside the house. Others showed her standing in town. One photo made Clara freeze completely. Evelyn stood beside another woman. A woman who looked exactly like Clara's mother. Clara stepped closer, in disbelief. No! Her fingers trembled against the photograph. On the back, faded handwriting read, Margaret and Evelyn, summer 1989. Margaret, her mother's name. Clara felt dizzy. Why had her mother never mentioned this place? Why did she know Evelyn? And why did the woman in the portrait look so much like Clara herself? Suddenly, bang! The hidden door upstairs slammed shut. Clara jumped violently. Darkness swallowed the staircase. She rushed upward. The door wouldn't move. Someone had locked it from outside. Panic exploded inside her chest. Hey! She pounded against the wood. Opened the door. Silence answered her. Then came footsteps. Slow footsteps crossing the attic above her. Creak, creak, creak. A shadow moved beneath the crack under the door. Someone was standing there, watching. Clara backed away slowly. Then the shadow disappeared, and a voice whispered softly through the wood. You shouldn't have opened it. The voice sounded female. Weak, trembling, but familiar, very familiar. Almost identical to Clara's own voice. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Clara lost track of time inside the underground room. She searched desperately for another exit. Nothing, only stone walls, ancient shelves, and the endless photographs. Then she noticed an old journal lying beneath the bed. The leather cover was cracked with age. The first page carried a name, Evelyn Vale. Clara sat down slowly and opened it. Most pages were damaged by moisture, but several entries remained readable. The handwriting became more frantic near the end. He watches the attic every night. He says the house belongs to our bloodline. Mother tried to leave, but he brought her back. He thinks the key will open the gate. Clara frowned. What key? What gate? Then she reached the final entry. and her blood turned cold. "If anyone finds this, tell Clara the truth." Clara nearly dropped the journal. Her own name stared back at her from the page. Impossible. The journal was over 20 years old. How could Evelyn know her name? Then she noticed something else written beneath it. Very faint, barely visible. "She is my daughter." Clara stopped breathing. The room spun around her. No! She shook her head violently. It couldn't be true. Her mother had died years ago. She would never lie about something like this. Would she? Then memories began surfacing. Small things Clara never questioned before. No baby pictures before age 5. No relatives. No stories about her father. Whenever Clara asked questions, her mother always changed the subject. A horrible realization slowly formed in her mind. What if her mother had been hiding her from this place? What if Clara had lived her whole life without knowing who she truly was? Then suddenly, click, the hidden door upstairs creaked open by itself. Clara stared upward into darkness. Silence filled the staircase. No footsteps now. No whispering. Only stillness. She climbed slowly back into the attic. The flashlight beam crossed the room carefully. Everything looked empty again. But scratched into the attic floor near the rocking chair were fresh words. 3 deep marks carved into the wood. "He knows you're here." The temperature dropped instantly. Clara turned slowly and saw him for the first time. A tall man standing motionless near the attic window. Dark coat, pale face, empty expression. Rain blew through the open window behind him. He looked almost transparent in the moonlight, his eyes fixed directly on Clara. Not blinking, not moving, just staring. Clara stepped backward in terror. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head slowly, then spoke in a calm voice. "You have her eyes." Lightning flashed outside, and for one terrifying second, Clara realized something impossible. The man had no reflection in the attic window. Behind him, Clara stumbled backward. So quickly she nearly fell through the attic ladder. The pale man never moved. Rain poured through the open attic window behind him, yet his clothes remained completely dry. "You're not real," Clara whispered. The man's expression did not change. "You came back sooner than expected," he said calmly. His voice sounded distant, like an echo traveling through deep water. Clara tightened her grip on the fireplace poker. "Stay away from me." The man slowly raised one hand. Inside his fingers hung an old silver key, small, decorated with strange symbols. Clara's stomach twisted instantly. The key from Evelyn's journal. "The gate must remain closed," the man said. Thunder exploded outside. The attic lights flickered once. And suddenly, the man vanished, gone, as if he had never stood there at all. Clara ran downstairs in panic. Every shadow inside the house now felt alive. She slammed the kitchen lights on. Nothing, no sign of anyone, but the fear remained, heavy, pressing against her chest. She grabbed her phone again. Still no signal. The storm outside worsened by the minute. Wind hammered the walls. Branches scraped across the windows like fingernails. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks at the front door. Clara froze. Another knock followed, this time louder. She approached carefully. "Who is it?" A familiar voice answered. "The power lines are down. Open up." It was the old man from the road, the one who warned her not to sleep upstairs. Clara hesitated, then unlocked the door slightly. The old man stepped inside quickly, soaked by rain. His eyes immediately scanned the staircase leading upward. "You saw him, didn't you?" Clara stared. "How do you know that?" The old man removed his hat slowly. "Because he's been waiting for you." His name was Walter Briggs. He had lived near the forest almost his entire life. He sat at Clara's kitchen table holding a steaming mug of coffee while thunder shook the house. "You need to leave," Walter said quietly. "I'm not leaving until someone explains what's happening." Walter looked exhausted, older than before, as if the house itself drained strength from him. Finally, he sighed heavily. The Vale family owned this land for generations. Rich people, powerful people. He glanced nervously toward the ceiling. But something happened here years ago. Evelyn disappeared, Clara said. Walter nodded slowly. That's what the town believes. Clara leaned forward. And the truth? Walter hesitated, then whispered. She didn't disappear. The room became completely silent. She died in this house. Clara felt ice spread through her veins. Walter continued speaking softly. Her father locked her inside the attic after she tried to escape. Clara frowned. Escape from what? Walter looked toward the storm outside. From him. The man I saw. Walter nodded again. Victor Vale. Lightning flashed across the windows. He became obsessed with old rituals. Strange beliefs passed through the family for decades. Clara remembered the words from the journal. The gate. The key. He believed their bloodline protected something hidden beneath the house. Walter's voice dropped lower, and he believed Evelyn was chosen to open it. The floor above them creaked suddenly. Both of them looked upward instantly. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, walking across the attic again. Walter's face turned pale. He knows I'm here. Clara stood. You've seen him before? Walter laughed nervously. Everyone in town has. That's impossible. Walter looked directly at her. Victor died 20 years ago. A violent crash exploded upstairs. Clara jumped. Walter grabbed her arm instantly. Don't go up there. But Clara already pulled away. The attic noises grew louder now. Furniture scraping. Heavy dragging. Something slamming against the walls. Clara climbed the stairs carefully, while Walter followed reluctantly behind her. The hallway lights flickered wildly. The attic ladder hung open, swinging slightly. Cold air poured downward. Then came a sound that made Clara stop completely. Crying. A woman crying softly above them. Walter whispered under his breath. Oh, God. Clara climbed anyway. The attic looked destroyed. Boxes scattered everywhere. The rocking chair lay overturned. The hidden door downstairs stood wide open again. And written across the attic wall, in enormous letters, were fresh words carved into the wood. She must remember. Clara's breathing became shallow. Then she heard the crying again, coming from inside the hidden room. She moved toward the staircase slowly. Walter grabbed her shoulder. Don't. But Clara pulled free and descended. The underground room looked different now. Candles burned along the walls. Fresh flames. The photograph of Evelyn covered nearly every surface. And in the center of the room sat a woman, facing away from them. Long dark hair covered her shoulders. Her white dress looked soaked with water. The crying stopped. Very slowly, the woman stood. Clara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The woman turned around, and Clara nearly screamed. The woman looked exactly like Evelyn from the portrait. Exactly. Same face, same eyes, same dark hair. But her skin looked unnaturally pale, and her expression carried unbearable sadness. Walter backed away immediately. No. The woman looked directly at Clara. You came back for me. Clara couldn't speak. Every logical thought inside her mind collapsed. You're Evelyn, she whispered finally. Tears filled the woman's eyes. Yes. Walter grabbed Clara's arm violently. We need to leave now. But Evelyn suddenly looked terrified. No, she cried. The candles flickered violently. He'll hear you. Too late. Heavy footsteps echoed above them. Not slow this time. Fast. Aggressive. The ceiling trembled. Boom, boom, boom. Something massive moved through the attic overhead. Victor. Evelyn stepped backward into the shadows. He cannot know I spoke to you. Clara moved closer desperately. You wrote the journal? Evelyn nodded weakly. You're my daughter. Walter stared at Clara in shock. What? But Evelyn continued quickly. Margaret took you away before he could find you. My mother knew all this. She saved your life. The footsteps above them grew louder. Dust rained from the ceiling. Evelyn's voice trembled. He wants the key. The silver key? Yes. Clara remembered seeing it in Victor's hand. What does it open? Evelyn looked terrified, then whispered, the gate beneath the house. Suddenly the attic floor above them cracked loudly. Walter shouted, We're out of time. A deep voice thundered from upstairs. Evelyn. The underground room shook violently. Candles extinguished instantly. Darkness swallowed everything. Then Clara felt cold fingers wrap around her wrist. Evelyn pulled her close. "Listen carefully," she whispered urgently. "There's a room beneath the cellar. Find the black door before he does." "Why?" "Because that's where they buried the truth." Heavy footsteps slammed across the attic directly overhead now. The entire house groaned. Walter dragged Clara toward the stairs. "We have to go." Evelyn remained behind in darkness. Her eyes locked onto Clara one last time. Then she whispered words that froze Clara's blood completely. "He's not your grandfather." A deafening roar exploded upstairs. The ceiling cracked open. Wood splintered everywhere, and through the collapsing attic floor, Clara saw Victor standing above them, smiling. The ceiling exploded downward in a storm of wood and dust. Clara screamed as broken beams crashed around them. Victor stood above the shattered floorboards, staring directly at her with hollow eyes, smiling. Not a normal smile, a hungry smile. "You should never have returned," he said calmly. Walter grabbed Clara's arm and pulled her toward the stairs. "Run." The underground room shook violently behind them. Evelyn vanished into darkness as the candles reignited one by one. Victor stepped forward slowly through the broken attic floor. His movements looked wrong, too smooth, almost floating. Clara and Walter climbed into the attic just as another beam collapsed behind them. The entire house groaned like it was alive. They rushed down the hallway. Footsteps followed overhead despite Victor standing behind them. Impossible footsteps. Dozens of them, running through the walls, across the ceiling, inside the house itself. Clara nearly slipped on the staircase. Walter caught her. "The cellar!" he shouted. Clara remembered Evelyn's warning. The black door. Buried truth. They reached the kitchen just as every light in the house exploded. Glass shattered everywhere. Darkness swallowed them instantly. Only lightning illuminated the room now. Flash. Shadow. Flash. Movement. Victor stood at the far end of the hallway, closer than before. Impossible. He should still be upstairs. Walter whispered shakily. "He doesn't move like us." The cellar entrance hid beneath a trapdoor near the pantry. Walter yanked it open. Cold air rushed upward. Clara climbed down first. Walter followed quickly and slammed the trapdoor shut above them. For 1 second, everything became silent. Then, thud. Something heavy landed directly on the trapdoor overhead. Clara froze. Another thud followed. The wood cracked slightly. Walter grabbed an old lantern from a shelf and lit it with shaking hands. The cellar stretched deep beneath the house. Stone walls, rusty shelves, ancient pipes, and strange symbols carved everywhere. Clara stared at them carefully. Circles, eyes, black spiral shapes. The same symbols carved into the silver key. Thud. The trapdoor above them bent inward violently. Walter cursed under his breath. "He's stronger tonight." "What is he?" Clara asked. Walter hesitated, then answered quietly. "Not human anymore." The lantern flickered. Clara looked deeper into the cellar. At the far end stood a narrow tunnel she hadn't noticed before. Old bricks surrounded it, and at the end of the tunnel, a black wooden door, exactly as Evelyn described. Another massive impact shook the cellar ceiling. Dust rained downward. Walter shoved the lantern into Clara's hands. "Go!" "Aren't you coming?" "I'll hold him here." Clara stared at the old man in horror. "You can't stop him." Walter gave a weak smile. "No." His eyes filled with sadness. "But maybe I can slow him down." Clara ran through the tunnel. The air grew colder with every step. Behind her, the trapdoor finally shattered open. A terrible roar echoed through the cellar. Walter shouted something. Then came silence. Complete silence. Clara stopped breathing. Slowly, another sound emerged. Footsteps, descending into the cellar. Victor had entered. Clara reached the black door. Ancient locks covered its surface, and in the center sat a small silver keyhole. Her blood turned cold. The key. Victor carried the key, which meant the door was still locked. Footsteps echoed closer through the tunnel. Slow, patient. Victor wasn't rushing anymore. He knew she had nowhere to go. Clara searched desperately around the tunnel walls. Then she noticed old papers scattered across the floor. Newspaper clippings. Photographs. Documents. One photo showed Victor standing beside several people in dark robes. Behind them stood the house, unfinished at the time. Another clipping carried a horrifying headline. Local children missing near Vale Estate. Clara's hands trembled. There were 7 names listed beneath the article. 7 missing children, all unsolved. Footsteps stopped behind her. Very close now. Victor's voice echoed softly through the tunnel. You've seen too much. Clara slowly turned. He stood at the tunnel entrance holding the silver key. His pale face remained emotionless. Rainwater dripped from his coat, even though he had not stepped outside. You are part of this house, he said calmly. Clara backed against the black door. You murdered those children. Victor tilted his head slightly. They were offerings. The lantern flickered wildly. Clara felt sick. What are you? For the first time, Victor smiled wider. A gatekeeper. He raised the silver key slowly. The bloodline keeps the gate sealed. Clara remembered Evelyn's words. He's not your grandfather. Fear twisted inside her. If you're not my grandfather, then who are you? Victor's eyes darkened. I was chosen long before your family arrived. The tunnel temperature dropped sharply, and now you've been chosen too. Suddenly the lantern flame exploded outward. Darkness consumed the tunnel. Clara heard whispers instantly. Hundreds of whispers. Children's voices. Crying. Begging. The tunnel walls seemed to breathe around her. Then ghostly hands appeared from the darkness. Small pale hands reaching through the stone. Clara screamed and stumbled backward. Victor remained perfectly still. The gate is opening, he whispered. Black liquid began leaking beneath the black door. Thick, moving slowly across the floor, like living oil. The whispers became louder. Desperate, agonized. Clara pressed herself against the wall in terror. Then she heard another voice. Evelyn. Clara. A pale figure appeared farther down the tunnel. Evelyn reached toward her desperately. Don't let him unlock it. Victor turned sharply toward Evelyn. Anger finally appeared on his face. You failed once already. Evelyn's expression hardened. I won't fail her too. Suddenly, every candle in the cellar ignited at once. A violent force blasted through the tunnel. Victor staggered backward for the first time. Evelyn grabbed Clara's hand. Run. They sprinted deeper into darkness through another hidden passage Clara hadn't seen before. Behind them, Victor roared in fury. The sound no longer resembled a human voice. It sounded ancient, monstrous. The tunnel shook violently as they ran. Stone cracked around them. The whispers screamed louder and louder. Clara gasped for breath. What is behind that door? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. My father thought it was power. Wasn't it? No. Evelyn looked back fearfully. It was hunger. The passage finally opened into a massive underground chamber. Clara stopped in shock. The chamber stretched beneath the entire property. Ancient stone pillars surrounded a giant circular pit in the center. Darkness moved inside the pit, not empty darkness. Something alive. Symbols covered every wall. Candles burned in enormous rings around the chamber floor, and above the pit hung chains. Dozens of chains. Rust-covered. Broken. Clara whispered, What is this place? Evelyn looked horrified. This is where the house was built. Then Clara noticed something else near the edge of the pit. Skeletons. Small skeletons. Children. Dozens of them. Clara nearly collapsed. Evelyn grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me carefully. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face now. He needs your blood to fully open the gate. Why me? Because you were born here. Clara stared. What? Evelyn nodded shakily. You weren't born in a hospital. Thunder rumbled somewhere far above them. This chamber is where you came into the world. Clara's mind spun violently. Every truth she believed about her life was falling apart. Then Victor's voice echoed through the chamber behind them. You should have remained lost. Clara turned slowly. Victor stood at the entrance of the underground chamber, holding the silver key. and behind him, Walter walked forward silently. Except Walter's eyes were completely black. Clara stared in horror. Walter moved beside Victor like a puppet. His face looked pale, empty. His black eyes reflected no emotion at all. "Walter?" Clara whispered. No response. Victor rested one hand gently on the old man's shoulder. "The house takes weak minds first," he said calmly. Evelyn stepped protectively in front of Clara. "You promised you would release them." Victor smiled faintly. "And you still believe promises matter here?" The underground chamber trembled softly. The black pit in the center pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow, massive, alive. Clara forced herself to speak. "What are you?" Victor looked almost amused. "I already told you." "No," Clara said shakily. "I mean, really." For the first time, Victor's expression changed. Something ancient moved behind his hollow eyes. "Long ago," he said quietly, "this land belonged to people who understood the gate. The candles around the chamber flickered violently. They fed it. The whispers returned instantly. Children crying somewhere deep beneath the pit." Victor continued. "In return, the gate protected them. Wealth, power, long life." Evelyn shouted angrily, "You murdered innocent people." Victor's voice became colder. "They were necessary." Walter suddenly stepped forward. Slowly, mechanically. "Bring her to the pit," he whispered. His voice sounded wrong, like several voices speaking together. Clara backed away in terror. Victor lifted the silver key. "The bloodline ends tonight." Then the chamber lights exploded. A deafening scream erupted from the pit. Not human, not animal. Something ancient waking below them. The black liquid began climbing the stone walls, moving upward like living veins. The chamber temperature dropped instantly. Clara's breath became visible. Victor approached slowly. "You were always meant to return." Clara's fear suddenly transformed into anger. "My mother saved me from you." Victor stopped. A strange expression crossed his face. "Margaret ruined everything." Evelyn turned toward Clara urgently. "He cannot touch the pit himself." "Why?" "Because he opened the gate years ago." Victor's face darkened instantly. Evelyn continued loudly. "That's why he never aged." The chamber fell silent. Clara stared at Victor carefully now. His face suddenly looked unnatural. Not old, not young, frozen, like a mask stretched over something rotten underneath. "You used Evelyn," Clara whispered. Victor said nothing. "You killed those children." Silence again. Then Clara finally understood. "You aren't protecting the gate." Victor's smile vanished completely. "You feed it." The pit suddenly roared. The entire chamber shook violently. Chains above them rattled wildly. Walter collapsed to his knees screaming. Dark liquid poured from his mouth. Evelyn grabbed Clara's hand tightly. "The key!" she shouted. "Take the key." Victor lunged forward instantly, faster than humanly possible. But Clara reacted first. She swung the lantern directly into his face. Glass shattered. Flames exploded across Victor's coat. He screamed horribly, not like a man, like dozens of voices shrieking together. The silver key flew from his hand across the chamber floor. Clara ran for it. Victor extinguished the flames instantly with impossible speed. His face changed now. Skin cracking, darkness leaking beneath it. His eyes became completely black. "You foolish child," he growled. The whispers beneath the pit became deafening. Hands emerged from the darkness below. Hundreds of pale hands clawing upward. Clara grabbed the silver key just as Victor reached her. Evelyn threw herself between them. Victor roared in fury. "You belong to me." Evelyn screamed back. "No, she never did." The chamber exploded with violent wind. Candles flew through the air. The chains above the pit snapped one by one. Crack, crack, crack. Walter crawled weakly across the floor toward Clara. His normal eyes returned briefly. "Destroy," he gasped. Clara leaned closer. "Destroy what?" Walter pointed weakly toward the pit. "The key." Victor heard him and smiled. "You're too late." The pit suddenly burst open wider. A massive shadow moved beneath the darkness. Something enormous, watching, waiting. Hungry, Clara looked at the silver key in her trembling hand, then at the pit, then at Victor. She finally understood. The key didn't open the gate. It kept it closed. Victor stepped closer slowly. "If the key is destroyed," he whispered, "the gate opens forever." Evelyn looked horrified. "He lied to us." Victor smiled again. "That's what fathers do." The creature beneath the pit began rising, not fully visible, only pieces, long black limbs, endless eyes opening inside darkness. The chamber walls cracked violently. Skeletons scattered across the floor. The whispers became screams. Walter grabbed Clara's arm weakly. "Run." But Clara stopped moving. Something else had caught her attention. The symbols around the chamber. They weren't random. They formed a circle, a seal, and the silver key matched the exact shape carved into the center stone beside the pit. Clara suddenly realized the truth. The key belonged inside the seal, not the door. Victor noticed her expression instantly, and for the first time, he looked afraid. "No!" Clara ran toward the stone circle. Victor screamed in rage and charged after her. The chamber shook violently. The creature below the pit rose higher. A giant eye opened beneath the darkness, watching Clara directly. Evelyn grabbed Victor from behind. "Go!" Victor hurled her aside with monstrous strength. Evelyn crashed into the stone wall. The entire chamber cracked. Clara reached the seal. Her hand shook violently. The key fit perfectly into the center slot. Victor lunged toward her with inhuman speed. "Don't!" Clara turned the key. The chamber exploded with blinding light. A shockwave blasted through the underground ruins. Victor screamed. His body cracked apart like burning paper. Darkness poured from inside him. Thousands of whispering voices escaped into the air. The creature beneath the pit roared so loudly the walls shattered. Then the seal began closing, slowly, dragging the darkness downward. Victor clawed desperately across the floor toward Clara. His human appearance melted away completely now. Underneath was something ancient, thin black limbs, empty eyes, a mouth stretching far too wide. "You don't understand," he shrieked. "The gate can never stay closed." Clara stared directly at him. "Then I'll stay here and hold it shut." Victor froze. Evelyn's eyes widened in horror. "Clara, no!" But Clara already understood what had to happen. Someone from the bloodline had to remain connected to the seal forever, just like Victor had, except she would protect it instead of feeding it. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "You deserve a life." Clara smiled sadly. "So did you." The seal glowed brighter. Victor screamed one final time as the closing darkness dragged him into the pit below. Then, silence. The gates sealed shut. The chamber stopped shaking. The whispers vanished completely. Only stillness remained. Morning sunlight broke through the ruins hours later. The old house above had partially collapsed into forest. Police arrived after nearby residents reported the earthquake during the storm, but they found almost nothing beneath the rubble. No underground chamber, no pit, no Victor, no Evelyn, only Clara sitting quietly beside a cracked stone circle buried beneath the cellar. Alive, alone. When rescuers asked what happened, Clara simply said, "The house is finally empty." Months later, the property was demolished completely. Workers refused to stay after sunset. Many claimed they heard footsteps above them at night, despite the house being gone. Others reported seeing a woman standing near the forest, watching silently beneath the moonlight. But Clara never returned there again. She moved far away, started over, built a new life, and for the first time, she finally felt free. Yet every single night before sleep, Clara checked one thing, the old silver key hanging beside her bed, because sometimes, very late at night, it became warm. And somewhere far away beneath the earth, something still breathed,